Just like Nima's outfit, I also have something that goes with my outfit. I'm sure people have been wondering why I'm wearing running shoes. There's a story to my shoes, but I will leave it for later. I was born and raised in a place called the Valley of 1,000 Hills. Anybody knows where that is? In KwaZulu-Natal. I had two brothers and I had a twin sister, and we were raised by the most loving and nurturing parents. My mom was a nurse at a local clinic, and my dad was in agriculture for a local NGO that was teaching the community how to farm and sustain themselves. And as much as we were nurtured, our lives were slightly different from the rest of the people in the community, purely because we're exposed to so much. I remember at age 5, my sister met this doctor at a clinic where my mom worked, and she was just fascinated by this white coat. And so she wanted to be a doctor from that very day, and eventually she did become a doctor. And it was the resources that we got through the organization that my dad worked for as well. And we managed to get a scholarship. We got the same scholarship from age 12, purely because of that exposure that we had that other kids in the community didn't have. I would like to share two stories of probably why I think I eventually took the journey that I took that happened during that time. So we went to a local school, and I met this teacher who just loved me. She just chose me and nurtured me, and even if I didn't want to read, she was just always on my case. And that year, for the first time, I think I was in grade, I'll call it standard 1. That's what, grade what now? Grade 3. And I was first in class, which never happened because my sister was always ahead of me. But because of that love and support, I strived so hard, probably to make her happy, but it was one of the things that made me realize that, wow, I can do anything with support. And fast forward to high school, we went to a Catholic boarding school. We got the scholarship to go to a Catholic boarding school, my sister and I. And I remember when we got there, my dad's car broke down. So we got to school around 10 p.m. at night. So can you imagine going to a new school? You don't know anybody and everybody's sleeping. You haven't been orientated of this environment. And the next morning, I remember us walking to the dining hall, and everybody already had their seats. They'd figured out the place the whole day, the previous day. And when we got there, we realized that the rule was we needed to bring provision, our own food, for 3 days. And we hadn't even bought one slice of bread. So we stood in this corner, not knowing where to go, where to sit, because the other people had already had 2 meals. And there's this girl who was in matric who came to us, gave us a place to sit next to her, and she fed us for 3 days. I have no idea where she got the food from, but from that day, I made sure I did the same for other kids every year. I would make sure my dad took us to school. At 7 o'clock in the morning, we were there so that I could support the same way I was supported. And then we finished university. I became a banker. I was a banker for about 16 years, had a very successful banking career. My sister became a doctor, and she lived in Canada for about 3 years. But unfortunately, they discovered that she had a brain tumor very late, so she didn't live long. But during that time, we had already started having a conversation of going back to the community and doing the same thing that the people that supported us had done for us. So for the next generation, providing those resources and so on. So I remember before she passed away, she bought me 2 DVDs, paying it forward. And she kept saying to me, if you lose one, at least you have a second one. Somebody gave us an opportunity. We wouldn't have what we have if it wasn't for those scholarships. So make sure that you do what this DVD says, because one day, the very kids that you'll help, even when you're not around, they will know that they will need to do the same. So it took me a while. She passed away in 2006, and I remember in 2010, I had just won the Gauteng Business Achiever Award, Business Women Association, and I was at the peak of my career. But in that banking environment, I was just edgy. I wasn't sure that I still wanted to do what I was doing. So I decided to go back home for one weekend, and I said to my mom, so my mom works still, she's retired, but she still works mainly in HIV and AIDS. And I asked her to find me 30 girls. And my topic, by the way, I've forgotten because it's not written there, is it's changing the story of a rural girl child. And so I asked for 30 girls, and I know the question is why girls and whatnot, and I've been asked this question so many times. It was because I come from a community where currently you find girls in grade 9 and 10, mostly in our high schools. If they have not been paid lobola for, there's a problem. They get, other girls think they're not good enough, they're not women enough. I come from a community where last year I asked grade 7 girls to write me letters about their dreams, and about 80% of them said they needed to have a child and finish matric. That for them is the best achievement, like the best of the best, and purely because of the government grants in this country. They think that's the best form of income that they can ever get. So that's why I chose girls. So I saw 30 girls on this day. I cried for 3 days after that, just listening to their stories, because here I was a banker. I didn't know where to start. I just knew figures. I traveled the world. I had fun. As much as I grew up in this community, I just didn't know where to begin. So I listened to stories of 2 girls who were achieving top results academically. One of them, I had gone to visit her family with my mom because they were trying to help her grandmother rebuild her house. So I went to take pictures because she was trying to raise money, so people needed to see this house. It was a mud house, a room. It was literally a room, this small. She lived there with 3 kids. When you're inside the house, when you look up the roof, there were like big holes. You could see the sky. And I was like, when it's raining, what do you do? So they said they actually sit up with buckets to make sure that their property is protected. That's how poor they were. But when I saw the results of this girl, I was like, oh my word. And at that time, she was so hopeless because her school had taken her through the Oprah Winfrey bursary process, and she had reached the final stage but didn't make it. So when I asked her which school she was going to, because she was so intelligent, she said she was going to go to a local school very close to our house, which is the worst school in the community. So I was like, but why that one? Because there's other better ones. And she said because her grandmother doesn't have 200 rands, that particular school that's better, she needs 200 rand in order to register. So this was my journey with her and another girl who was doing as well as her in school. I was still working. I took them on a scholarship program that I personally funded. And I took this one girl to the same school that my sister and I went to. It was a healing process, an amazing journey. You know, from the stuff that our parents used to do for us, you know, purchasing school trunks and whatever, it was so healing. The other one, I took her to a boarding school as well, Adams College. This year they're in matric, both of them already on full scholarship for university. One is going to study accounting science, the other one is going to study civil engineering. The difference though, which is why I eventually went back home, was that both of them started on our program with the same results, but one struggled really, really badly. Other one did well because she had a strong support structure at home. She had a very strong grandmother. So both of them were totally orphan kids. The other one had an alcoholic grandmother, the other one who was much poorer. And so she got to an environment where she just didn't have self-esteem. She was also ill, and I didn't know this bit because I just took a child and put her in school without doing any assessments. And she had a bad case of eye infection that eventually when we tried to figure out what was going on, she was so close to being blind. And she'd been She'd had this since she was 5, and they just kept taking her to a local clinic without further treatment. And that's why I realized that there was so much more than just taking a child to school, paying for uniform, paying for whatever it is that we pay for. And my sister had specifically documented a program, holistic program for orphaned children. And the reason for this, most of you would understand that the impact of HIV and AIDS, especially at that time, there were a lot of double orphans because there was no treatment. So those kids were the kids that came from that era where there was no treatment. So I really had to come up with programs based on the one girl. I always say that she's my guinea pig because everything that she went through, we had to make sure that we assessed other kids for, you know, the same issues and made sure that when we start a journey with them, we start much earlier. Her other biggest problem was spoken English. So when you take a child out of the community, no matter how intelligent they are, they get to an environment where other kids speak better, so they just shut down. So academically, she was very poor. So we started with programs in grade 5 where we got partners that provided English classes. That has been phenomenal. But anyway, I digress. Fast forward to this year, we have about 30 kids on our scholarship program who are in boarding schools. And times have changed. We now have single orphans, but most of them, they have mothers, no fathers. It's not because fathers passed away. It's because fathers are just not there. They are not known where they disappeared to. So, and I think it's happening in the whole of South Africa. We've had to start providing after-school programs that help with the child with homework. They are spoken English, maths and science, and hopefully scholarships. So in grade 5 to 7, if they're very good, we provide a scholarship program for boarding school, if we do get the funding for it. And then the rest, we work with them in a community. We are up to 265 kids in total that we're working with from 9 different schools. So that's, in a nutshell, what I do. My greatest concern is something that I picked up recently. So recently, I was enrolled in a program called the Global Ambassador Program. It's a program that's run by Vital Voices, an organization that was started by Hillary Clinton a few years ago, where global executives visit different emerging countries to mentor women leaders. And I remember being invited to speak in a global public forum as part of that health forum specifically. I was so shocked and scared. I was like, I'm not even in education. I used to be a banker. Why would I speak to anybody about health? And they were like, you are one of the up-and-coming health whatever. I don't even remember what the letter said. I was just so freaked out. But as during that week, I was told that in South Africa, the rate of new infections have spiraled almost out of control. And it's most new HIV and AIDS infections. And it's mostly children from the age of 12 all the way to 24, 25. And it's purely because they don't see what we see. They no longer see people dying of HIV and AIDS because of the treatment. So they think everybody is normal. They think HIV and AIDS is a myth. So when we looked at our statistics, and this is why we were recognized as such, because we've given hope to a hopeless child through education, whether a scholarship or providing support for them in the community, all of a sudden, somebody who thought, I just need to have a child and finish matric, they realize I can be a doctor, I can be an engineer. So all of a sudden, when you have a conversation with them about not falling pregnant, the options that they have for preventing falling pregnant, STDs, and HIV and AIDS, they listen. Out of our 30 kids on scholarship, I'll zone in on those ones, we've only had 1 pregnancy. We hope that our kids are not yet sexually active, but the conversation is not the same as when we were growing up. We try and promote them delaying being sexually active versus abstinence because it's almost not impossible. But because of what we offer them, I have become a mother to 265 kids. They are comfortable to talk to me, not about everything and anything, but what we've also been able to do is we've been able to attract overseas volunteers. Currently, I have a team of 10 volunteers from the US and the UK who live in a rural community with us. They run our classes. They have holiday programs. We've just introduced holiday programs because this is a community that also doesn't have any facilities whatsoever. So literally for kids, the best thing they can do is watch TV and be sexually active. So we've working with the schools in the school environment over the holidays, come up with different programs for them. But the fact that people from outside the country have come into the community to help them get a better education has given them so much hope. So for me, I've seen two girls that had a dream, they forgot about a dream, and because we came into their environment, they can dream again. They have, very good plans for themselves. So why am I wearing these shoes? I went through a bad process of grief. Losing my twin sister was really a horrible process. So I gave up on myself. When you speak about the Speedo, I can so relate. Because everything that we used to do together, we used to play soccer, we used to do so, I just stopped doing it. I just sat at home, I worked, slept, and that was it. So piled on a lot of weight, and along the way also broke my one leg, tore many ligaments on the other, so the problem got worse. But the more I saw the kids that I work with, the joy that I have brought into their lives, they've brought the same joy. The more I see them doing better in school, it has made me want to do better for myself. So what I decided to do after the Global Ambassador Program. So Global Ambassador Program, you get matched with a global executive. So I got matched with one of the most amazing women who used to be in the media space. She won 9 Emmy Awards for being a news anchor. Like, I read her bio and I was like, why me? Why would anybody match me with this individual? And we have walked the most amazing journey. But the one thing she said to me, she's like, Sbu, in one day, having spent time with you, you have forgotten about yourself. You have taken your grief and shifted focus on these kids, but where do you feature in all of this? And she's really walked the most amazing journey with me. And we started walking together. We're walking 1,000 kilometers for the Valley of 1,000 Hills to create the Valley of 1,000 Dreams. And it has been amazing. So I'm walking and cycling. In 2 months, I've been able to do about 535 kilometers. I feel on top of the world. It's the best thing that could ever happen. So for me, having chosen a path of trying to change the story of a child, because a girl child, because somebody changed my own story. Different people, I was raised by a community of people. They changed my story, and I've been able to change other kids' lives. Has changed my story yet again, because I feel like I'm in a new era, new chapter, because I always say that my sister was part of me. All of a sudden, she wasn't there, and I felt I didn't have an identity. But the process has helped to find my own identity. And I'm walking this journey. And I'll be finishing, hopefully, my 1,000 kilometers before the end of June. I am traveling to the US, and I'm going to be spending a week with my mentor, and we'll do a lot of walking. And the most amazing thing is she'll be running for Congress in the US. So it's an amazing journey. It's a life that I never thought I would live, and it was just through helping somebody else, changing somebody's story that has changed my own. Thank you.